Welcome everyone. In this video, I am going to demonstrate our next packet tracer activity 3.6.1, where we are trying to implement VLANs and trunking for a given topology. This is pretty much similar to what we have did in our earlier activities, but the more practice, the better you get at implementing VLANs and trunking. So let's get going. This is the topology for the 3.6.1 packet tracer activity that we were given. You check it out once again, it's more or less the same type of topology. Now there are four objectives that were given here. The first one being configure VLANs and assign ports to VLANs, configure static trunking, configure dynamic trunking. We are also given an addressing table where we have 6 PCs or 7 PCs, and this table also is going to tell you which PCs belong to which VLANs and what are the IP addresses, and the remaining these 3 entries actually talk about the SVI interfaces or the IP addresses given for the switch virtual interface for the management interfaces of the switch, and they belong to VLAN 99. Okay, let's start with the instructions. It says configure VLANs. There is another table given. We have to configure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 VLANs. So configure VLANs on all 3 switches. Refer to the VLAN table. Note that the VLAN names must match the values in the table exactly. Okay. So let us start from SWA. That is, there are 3 switches here: SWA, SWB, and SWC. So let's start applying our VLAN configuration to these switches one after the another. Okay. So let me click on SWA. Let me start it here. So enable configure terminal. And we have to enter all these VLANs in all the 3 switches, VLAN 10. Okay, now give me a minute. I will just the simplest thing to do when you want to repeat these commands again and again is just type them in a notepad and copy paste them. Okay, there you go. So I have created the VLANs, all the 6 VLANs here. Name native on SWA, and then let me do the same thing for the remaining switches also. SWB, let me type it here. Sorry, these things you have to do. So enable configure terminal, and then let me do it native. Okay, so I did it on switch B, and let me do it for switch C also. Thereby I'm creating the VLANs on all the switches that are involved. Configure terminal. So let me just paste the command. Just type in the name and VLAN ID and along with the name. That's all. So this part is done. Okay. Now assign ports to VLANs. Okay. So assign access ports to VLANs. On SWB and SWC, assign ports to the VLANs refer to the addressing table. Okay, let's go to the addressing table. And if you see here, on switch B, F01 belongs to 10, F0/2 belongs to VLAN 20, F0/3 belongs to VLAN 30. So let me do that. First, let me start with SWB. Okay, so interface, let us start with F0/1, F0/1, and first thing is switch port mode access. After that, switch port access VLAN 10. See, F0/1 should be accessing VLAN 10 traffic. Okay, enter, and interface F0/2, enter. I can just type in this switch port mode access again, and the next thing is VLAN 20 on B. Okay, enter, and interface F0/3, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 30. So I did the configuration of interfaces to VLANs or assignment of interfaces to VLANs on switch B. Let me proceed on to switch C. So on switch C, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 interfaces here. So let me do that. Interface F0/1, enter, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10 on switch C, enter. So interface F0/2, enter, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20, enter, and interface F0/3, enter, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 30, enter. And there is another switch port here, interface F0/4. This actually connect to both data VLAN number 10 and voice VLAN 40. So I have to create both of them. Okay, so in that case, first thing is switch port mode access, first thing, and switch port mode access VLAN 10 first. Sorry, VLAN 10. Okay, now let me just check whether he has given any specifics for the voice VLAN configuration. No, just configure the voice VLAN port. This is the port which you have to configure for voice VLAN. So if for voice VLAN, we need to enter MLS, because we are still under the same port F0/4 here. We need to enter the MLS QoS trust COS. Okay, and after that switch port voice VLAN 40. These are the commands that we issue for sending of your voice VLAN. Okay, so that's it. I'm done with that also. I completed step 2 also. Okay, fine. Let me go on to step 3. In step 3, it is asking me configure the SVIs for all switches, virtual management interfaces. So let me go to the table. Let me just click this. Yes, everything's nice. SWA, go to here. So it is interface VLAN 99, if you can see there. So what I need to do is interface VLAN 99, enter. IP address, what is the address for switch A? 192.168.99.252. Earlier we used to do it as interface VLAN 1, which is the default one. But now when we specify VLAN 99 to be for the management VLAN, we have to do the same thing. That is the reason I entered interface VLAN 99, which acts as the management VLAN now. Management VLANs are used for carrying management data, like your SVI data, HTTP data, SNMP data. Such data can be carried over these things. So IP address, and what is the subnet mask? 255.255.255.0. So this is the IP address assignment for SWA. Enter. Did I do it right? Yes. Enter. No shutdown. You should not forget no shutdown. And then for SWE, I do the same thing. Interface VLAN 99. Enter. IP address 192.168.99.253 space 255.255.255.0. enter. No shutdown. Okay, and then I have to do the same thing for SWC also. So interface VLAN 99, enter. IP address 192.168.99.254 space. The subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. enter, and then followed by no shutdown command. So I completed the SVI also. That is part 3. Step 3 is done. Now let us move on to part 3. Configure static trunking. Okay, so configure the link between SWA and SWB as a static trunk. Disable dynamic trunking on this port, and disable DTP on the switch port on both ends of the trunk link. Okay, that means we need to type in the switch port non-negotiate. Configure the trunk with the native VLAN and eliminate native VLAN conflicts if any. Okay, for this, these 3 steps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the link between SWA or switch A and switch B. which includes both the G0x1 port of switch A, the G0x1 port of switch B as trunk ports. That's all. So for first, let me start with switch A. Interface G0x1, enter. Switch port mode trunk. Okay, and switch port no negotiate, enter, and then switch port trunk native VLAN 100, because it's the same one that is given. You see, configure the trunk with the native VLAN. The native VLAN given for is 100. That is the reason switch port trunk native VLAN 100. I did this on switch A side. I have to do the same thing for switch B side also. Okay, so interface G0x1, enter. Switch port mode trunk, enter. Switch port no negotiate, enter. Switch port trunk native VLAN 100. So now the both sides of this trunk have the same VLAN set. Okay, there you go. This says port consistency is restored because I have set both sides of this trunk link with the same native VLAN as 100. Now this is done. Let me go for part 4. Configure dynamic trunking. Now assume that the trunk port on SWC, which is the Z0x2 port here, is set to the default DTP mode for 2960 switches, which is the auto mode. Now configure Z0x2 on SWA so that it successfully negotiates trunking with SWC, and also configure the trunk with the native VLAN and eliminate native VLAN conflicts if any. Okay, if that is the case, what I am going to do here is I am going to go to SWA, switch A, interface Z0x2. Now for me to do that, I think switch port mode dynamic desirable. This will set negotiation of trunk link with SWC port, dynamic desirable, and then switch port trunk native VLAN is 100. Okay, now let me do the same thing on SWC also. Interface Z0x2, 0x2, yes, enter. Switch port trunk native VLAN 100. Here you go, that's done. So there you go, the port consistency is restored. Yes, it shows now 100%. So we completed all this activity. It's pretty simple, as I told you, if you keep remembering the procedures properly. Now, first things first, you need to create the VLANs on all the switches first, which carry the traffic for these VLANs. And after doing that, the next thing that we need to do is you need to assign the right ports for these VLANs. So for switch B, you see F01 is connected to VLAN 10 traffic, F0x2 is connected to VLAN 20 traffic. The next step is you need to assign the ports to the correct VLANs. After that, you need to identify which links are to be converted as trunk links. And then you have to assign the right interfaces to be as trunk links. You can set them as dynamic trunks or static trunks, doesn't matter. And after all this, if there are any issues, you need to verify whether the native VLANs or the other VLAN numbers are done properly or not. So this is how you work with VLAN configuration and trunking. In the next module, we will cover our inter-VLAN routing, where we will be studying about how do you make the hosts that belong to one VLAN talk to hosts that belong to another VLAN. Okay, so thank you very much and good luck.